There have already been several editions of the James Bond archives, which I edited. There was an edition in 2012 for when Skyfall came out. That was in XXL size. Then there was a trade edition, which is this, in 2015 for when Spectre came out. And then for No Time to Die in 2019, I worked on a new edition of the James Bond archives. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it was delayed a couple of years. But thankfully, Taschen brought out a limited edition, 1,000 copies only. Hold on a moment. All right, which is this. I'm gonna unbox it now. I'll just get my breath. Come back in a moment. Be careful, I have a scalpel in my hand. Alright, let's see. Okay, so there are only 500 of these and 500 of the other one. This one is sold out, so you can't get hold of this. Also, I have here an artist proof number 20. So, the James Bond Archives No Time to Die edition. Okay, right, let's get this thing open. Alright, it doesn't come with instructions how to open it. Alright, so you can see here, this says AP20 and it's got a picture of the print that's inside. Alright, so I'll open it here. Alright, okay. So the reason the book and the box is so big is that the first thing we have is the print. Okay. Okay. So here is folder. Right. As you can see, that's beautifully done here. It's debossed. Got to open it very delicately. So this is the print. So this is a print, Daniel Craig as James Bond. It was used, the image was taken by Greg Williams, photographer, and it was used for the teaser poster for Casino Royale. Right? And it's beautifully done. It's been reproduced by Greg himself. It's been printed by him, and on the back we have his signature for his approval. Okay, so this is to go up on in a frame, on the wall, whatever you need. Okay, and you open this up, and what's inside? It's a book. Okay, all right, so here's the book. Again, scalpel time. Okay, isn't this beautiful? So this is in a clamshell case, opens up, and then you've got the book inside. So there is an XXL version of this book, but this has another big difference. This is signed by Daniel Craig, signed by Michael G. Wilson, and signed by Barbara Broccoli. So the star, No Time to Die, and the producers, which is great. And then James Bond Archives, edited by Paul Duncan, that's me. So it starts with an interview with Ian Fleming, and it features every James Bond movie from Dr. No to No Time to Die, including the original 1960s Casino Royale and Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery. So the producers, Michael and Barbara, were very kind in allowing me complete access to all the archives at Eon, which is this enormous warehouse full of documents, and there is another place full of photographs, over 1 million photographs, and this forms the basis of the book. They gave me access to interviews. John Cork had done a lot of historical interviews for the DVDs, special edition DVDs, and I got access to the complete transcripts of these interviews, plus production interviews on the more recent films, B-roll, just masses and masses of material. Now obviously there's far too much for one person to go through, so luckily I had a great team of co-writers, each of them taking individual movies and writing them as oral histories. So I wrote the first few, Dr. No, the Sean Connery ones essentially, and then gave those to the writers so that they could follow the same sort of format, which is an oral history. And the photography is just amazing. Many of these images reproduced in this book for the first time, plus images we know and love. There are certain moments in the movies that we all remember, and I wanted to make sure that they were all in here, all in the book. Oh, I love these images from For Your Eyes Only, with Roger Moore smiling at the camera, underwater photography, it's amazing, Meteora, incredible. So one of the great things about the more recent movies is that obviously there were no interviews and there was no existing materials for me to use. So for Skyfall, Spectre and No Time to Die, I was lucky enough to interview the heads of departments, etc., to find out what was happening on the movie, to read the scripts, the script development, etc. It was great. It was great. It was great fun. Chris Corbould, I remember him telling me that they're very safety conscious. So he said that when he builds these enormous mechanical devices that lift and take down things, that he would test everything and test it for the actors. And on No Time to Die, when Leiter and Bond are in the trawler, there's a sequence where the trawler goes down. This was done in the water tank in Pinewood Studios. And so Chris had built this trawler and it goes down into the water and all this water comes flooding in. I was there outside the trawler. Only the actors, the camera crew and a couple of stunt people could fit inside the space because it was so small. Cary Fukunaga and Linus Sandgren, the director of photography, they were outside in front of the monitors. Everybody else was around this giant tank. And I saw Chris Corbould out of the corner of my eye wearing a wetsuit, and I thought, well, why is he wearing a wetsuit? And then I found out, because he came in, he went into the trawler, he sat down where Jeffrey Wright as lighter would sit down in his wetsuit. Everybody else was out, and then they pressed the button and all the water came pouring in. So Chris physically tested all the materials in front of everybody so that everybody understood, first, how it was safe, and secondly, what it would look like and how it was going to appear, what would happen, so that people wouldn't be surprised by it when they were actually shooting. So they did this, all the water was coming in, the water was coming up. They filmed it, or they did the full procedure, and then the water, they got rid of the water, they pumped it all out. Right, then they had to dry everything, and then Jeffrey Wright came and sat down after they dried everything in order to do the scene with Daniel Craig. Now, while this is going on, I can see that Cary and Linus, they not only have the monitors in front of them showing what was happening inside the trawler, they also had additional screens showing what was being filmed in the second unit. So the second unit was on the Cuba nightclub set, filming all the members of Spectre dying, the close-ups and inserts. And so as that was happening, they could contact the second unit live as that was happening, so that they could check and make any changes that they want. Also, at the same time, I went outside, and on the lot they had the exterior for Cuba, and they were resetting it for that night's shoot. So if you remember, there's a scene where all the scaffolding comes down and then the electric poles come down and they're all sparks, etc. Well, that was done as a set, as that could be reset. So essentially that they'd already filmed and taped the previous night. They were then resetting it, all the poles back into position, the scaffolding up, so that they could do another take that night. And so with all these checks, all these things going on, they then could film the scene with Daniel and Jeffrey Wright. They're filming the scene. It's a very tense scene, obviously, because Jeffrey Wright is hurt, and fatally, we understand. And it's essentially the two characters saying goodbye to each other. So it's full of emotion, intense emotions. So, and you can feel that on the set. You can feel that as they're acting, right? You can, we were given earplugs so that we could hear what was being said inside the trawler. And it is, there is a tension that you can feel as they're acting this out. And they do take after take after take, and then they've got the take. And then Jeffrey Wright just, he says something rude, he swears a bit, to Daniel Craig, right? And they start laughing. And so I didn't quite catch what's going on. But I asked later, not on set, but afterwards, I interviewed Daniel Craig, and I asked him specifically about that moment, because I wondered what was going on. And Daniel explained, well, because you're only showing part of a scene, you're only filming part of a scene, the full emotion of a scene is not played out. You only act part of that emotion. So if you have to build up as characters and as actors, you're trying to build a certain amount of emotion. You know, when you say cut, the emotion is still there. It's got nowhere to go because you haven't played out the full scene. And what you were saying is that Jeffrey Wright very cleverly and properly was breaking the moment by making a joke so that the emotion of the moment could dissipate, and so that if they needed to, they could build up that emotion again for another take or another angle. And I thought that was very interesting. Lots of fabulous photos, and what's great is that you can see all the stunts. You see exactly how they're made. You can see that the stuntmen really are hanging off an airplane that's travelling at speed while over a truck that's also travelling at speed. Just amazing work. And in fact, on No Time to Die, I also, while they were in the trawler, I got a chance to see some of the stunt people at work. When there's an explosion, Daniel Craig, James Bond, is blown across the trawler by the force of the explosion. So how this was done was, you have a stuntman dressed as Bond. He's wearing a harness. He's got a rope on the back. The stunt coordinator, Oliver Schneider, he was there with a rope, the other end of the rope. And when the explosion went, he not only is the stuntman jumping a bit, but Oliver is pulling him back, so that it gives it that force, that extra force. Now, before they did the stunt, they had to test this out. It's a very small space, and there are sharp edges, you know, with different mechanics in there. So they had to work out precisely where the stuntman was going to land. Now, he's wearing a little bit of padding, but not an enormous amount. As they're testing, there are mats on the floor and also on the edges of the mechanics, the engine. So they're testing. They worked out when is to pull, where he's going to land. Then they take the mats away. Then action, bang, off he goes, lands. They did this a couple of times. The cameraman is in the corner, really, you know, wedged in order to take this shot. And I could see Cary and Linus talking about it. They talk about, do you think that worked? Do you think that was right? And then they turned around to us, people that were looking, and says, you know, do you think that worked? Do you think that was okay? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, it looks great, but it's very straight. As it was framed, the actor, the stuntman, was going straight out within the frame. And I thought, if it was Dutch, so if it was slightly askew and he was all going to one of the corners in the movement, that perhaps that would be, you know, a more interesting shot. So they reshot it again. And this is one of the things that you could see Cary and the crew, they were doing. What they were doing was that they were filming what they needed, and then if they had the time, they would shoot other angles of other ideas in order to give them options in the editing room. Because you never know until you edit it together how it's going to look and how it's going to cut together, and whether one piece of film will go acting will go with another piece of film and acting. So that was all part of the process. Really very educational and great fun. So I need time to have a look at the rest of this book again. I keep coming back to it and I keep seeing different things in the photography when I look up really close. So that's all for now. This is limited edition. These 500 copies with this image have sold out. As I speak, the other 500, there are maybe a few left of the other edition. I know they've been running out quickly, so those are still available if you want to purchase a copy. And that's it. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And I'll see you next time. James Bond. Have I damaged that?